What's going on, guys? I am in process of this 12-string Tele guitar. Beautiful guitar body, beautiful wood from Kimball Hardwoods. Go to kimballhardwoods.com. You can find some outstanding pieces of wood. He has wide pieces of wood. This is 9 inches across, and it is perfect for this double neck. I am building this for Kevin Bond of In Minor. I've been posting some things on Instagram showing him playing my custom carve top I built for him, and he needs a 12-string for live performances. So I've posted a couple things on this guitar already, but you keep asking for stains, so we're gonna do stains. I've tested some colors. This is a black base with orange and then red. It's exactly what we were going for. We've also tested a sort of lighter sanded out black with red and orange, and what we realized is we wanted to go with the darker look. We then played around with some other colors, maybe like a tiger's eye burst, and he didn't want that. He wanted to go with the darker red. So first thing we got to do is put a nice thick coat of black on this. We're going to be using Angelus leather dies. You can purchase the dies in the link below. I get a little bit of a kickback, which always helps in making these videos. This is a 3-piece Corinna body. You can't build these guitars out of a 1-piece because the wood will move. So there's a company that's making a 12-string right now out of a 1-piece, and that wood will move over time. Wide pieces of wood tend to flex. I've got 3 pieces, one here, and one here. Let's get some black stain and drop it on. Alright, so we've got Angelus Jet Black, and we're gonna lay that on pretty thick. You want to make sure you always shake up your can. And since I am applying black to the top and the back, I can pour it over here like this. We're going to soak up as much as we can in here. We were going to do live edge binding on this, but then as I was cutting the lumber, I don't think I have a piece here, I could see a little bit of bleeding in, and I knew that if I sealed this, for some reason this is a soft piece of quilt, and I was really fearful that we weren't going to get the look right, and then I've got like a big mess on my hands. So we are just going with black on the front and the back, and then we're going to add some red and knock this thing out of the park. So Angelus Black is a little bit of a different dye than the other colors. Lots of pigment. What you can see as I rub it in, a lot of the dye sits on the top. So you got to go with 2 coats. Always go with 2 coats. And you can see as I'm rubbing it around, it's just pushing around. I sanded this body down to 320. What I did is I got it to 220, I wetted it down to make sure I got all the scratches out, and then I hit it with 320 and it was perfect. So that's 2 coats, and it's not drying that great. So what we're going to do is put a couple coats on the back and then come back to the front. Alright, there it is. It's drying. Now I can see the colors going in. If you've noticed some of my builds, sometimes I do things out of order, but for this one, I did it in order. I got everything drilled before I applied any coloring. On the back, we're going to leave it black. We are not going to do any grain filler. We're also going to probably do this in an oil finish. Not going to put a heavy finish on that. I am not a big fan of those at all. Neither is Kevin. Kevin is playing with In Minor. He was part of Super Joint. They did a bunch of live shows recently, got some good press. A lot of names you know in that band. You can look them up yourself. So we put a belly carve on this, make it a little bit easier to play. I also hollowed this thing out so that it's not too heavy. And even with hollowing it out, it's a tad heavy. And on the back, it's really absorbing the stain. See sort of the streaks, we'll have to come back over that. Alright, we got 2 coats on. We'll soak this top a little bit more. We'll fast forward this second coat so you don't have to watch it. One thing you want to do is make sure you get the dye on the inside here so you actually don't see the wood. I cut that slot by hand. Alright, for this last coat on the back, we're going to leave this wide sort of pattern. It'll be a little bit easier when we come back, start playing with the coloring. Black has a tendency to sit on the top sometimes, so you can see when I do that, it's just sitting. And I'm getting the control cavities so you don't see any of that when you get your covers. Alright, we'll let that sit. You can see how much streaks I got on here. The funny thing about working on a 12 string is it takes up so much more space than I'm used to. Alright, so we sanded this off with 320 open grit sandpaper, and I was really careful to try and keep the coloring the same, and I also had a hand on the machine and on the vacuum, and I made sure that I got even pressure. I want to make sure that the color was very similar in terms of tone. A couple spots here I didn't get perfect, but then I started looking at the figure and I could sort of match up some of the darker spots, and I was like, okay, I'm good. So we've got orange from Angelus. We're gonna put that on next, and then we'll do the red. And now I'm gonna pour this to the side so I don't stain my work. Alright, so we've got a pretty thick amount of orange on here. We'll wipe this on. Orange first so that we don't bleed the reds too much. And you can see we're picking up a lot of black dye, which was expected. We'll put 2 coats on here. You can see that black coming back up. See all that black. Now we're gonna go with the red. Take a picture here. Now we got the red, and we're gonna put the red right on top of that. Again, we'll take this to the side, soak this rag up good. And we're gonna wait and see what happens. Starting to darken up a little bit. Go over this a couple times. This looks awesome. Alright, that's it. We're gonna leave it, and we're gonna let it see what happens. Just want to make sure the color doesn't sort of blotch out anywhere. It's pretty darn close. Figure's a little bit wider here than this, but that's awesome. Alright, so here we are, 24 hours dried, and if I compare my original sample to the sample I didn't want, I've definitely got a little bit of a darker color in this. The figure here is also a little bit bigger, so it's going to look slightly different, but what I want to do is just take a little bit of a Brillo pad here, whatever this is called, felt pad, and just take a little bit of the color out. I think it's going to make a huge difference. Don't really need to work it over. But sometimes taking that top level out just helps. And I can see it definitely does. Makes that red pop just a little bit. happens is you get the dye to just sit on the top of the wood. It's not absorbed, and it sort of makes the color a little bit washed out. And this is the trick that always gets the color to pop a little bit more. Red is really hard to see on a camera, so it looks so much better in person than on a camera. For some reason, red doesn't pick up well on a camera. Again, I want to be conscious of the color. That's what I'm going for, and I can see the red that I put on just helps pull out the red that's not sitting on in the grain. Very light pressure here. If you push too hard, you'll pull up too much color. I think that's it. Just want to even it out. One of the problems with the pickup routes and the bridge posts is that as you're rubbing, you'll have a tendency to go into the pocket. Try not to do. But that's it. Helps bring out the color just a bit. So we'll hit this with a sanding sealer, and we're doing that with a mist coat. The mist coats help lock in the color, so if you apply an oil or something else over it, it really locks in that color. And then you will see this video being finished shortly. I've got about 4 hours of work in here. Got to edit it all up. Hopefully in the next 3 weeks I'll have this one complete. But that is how you do a cherry burst on a quilted piece of maple. Piece of maple is from Kimball Hardwoods. Give him a look up. Unbelievable guy, and has some of the best woods I've ever worked with. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.